Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the last video in the Skymaster XXL Hawk build. We're making some amazing progress in this build and we will wrap this plane up in this video with our engine runs, gear checks, all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned and we'll finish this big girl up. All right guys, last video, huge accomplishment was the cockpits and the front tray and the wiring and everything, light install. This video, we're gonna wrap everything up, so let's not waste a bunch of chit chat time. Let's get back into this thing. We're gonna start off with getting the pilots ready to run, ready to plug in, the random head generators, all that kind of stuff. So let's get that done next. As I mentioned in the last video, we got our MR30 plugs. Thank you, Joe, for making these so quickly for me. These are awesome. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount these guys in the fuselage, probably on the board. And these are gonna be the plug-in locations for our plugs for the pilot's heads. Now these are like the yellow MR30 connectors that many turbine manufacturers use now, including Swiwin, Zykoi, and great application for something like this. All right, so first step here, I marked out the connector or the holder. I placed it on the board, drew around it with a fine line Sharpie, and cut that out with my Dremel. And now we've got our hole locations for our connectors. So those are done. We need to run wires from this point to out of that hole and into the random motion generator. So that's kind of the next thing we need to do. It's going to be a bit of a pain, so I may unbolt this, this tray just to make that a little bit easier. And we need to get those wires run. What I'll probably do here first is get this side of the connector all set up. So then we can just run that wire and then I can attach the connectors, the servo connectors on this end once they come through that hole. So that's probably what I'll end up doing here. All right guys, so we've got both of the cockpits done and ready to go with the moving heads. So all I do in this situation is drill a hole through the seat, drill a matching hole through the bottom, and we have our servo lead come out, and that connects to our power box lead, which connects to our MR30 connector. So these are extremely simple to plug into the board there. You can see the front cockpit's already plugged in, and we've got lots of excess as well too, so you don't have to like fight to get the cockpit in place and then plug it in. So you can hold the cockpit out here and easily plug that guy in. So we're gonna get those fired up. We're gonna fire the plane up and we will check out how the moving heads look. The pilot's moving head works awesome. You can see them there randomly moving. So it's the randomizer is all adjustable, but usually the stock setup is pretty awesome. And canopy closed. Canopy locks, canopy unlocks, canopy opens. All right guys, lens cover time. Now I can't remember if I talked about this in the previous videos, but we tried using right dye, which is fabric dye, to dye these, and they wouldn't accept the dye color. This one's got a little bit of the green, but not much at all. You might be able to see it better against white. Yeah, not much. Anyway, so we picked up some polycarbonate paint. So this is translucent red, translucent green. Now this is for RC car bodies. So this stuff is designed to paint on the inside of the body. So what we want to do here is get this nice and clean and oil-free on the inside. And then we'll just give this a really light misting of these colors. And we're going to prep off the outside as well too to make sure we don't get any on the outside. So I'm going to get this done, and we'll also get these installed pretty quickly. All right, so last thing I did here was hook up the fuel pump to the UAT. Now we're still waiting on the smoke UAT, as I've told you. So this one here, we need to tie wire this connection. But you could conceivably, with this being so short, just go from the 6 mil on the Y on the fuel pump to 6 mil here, it would totally probably be fine. But we maximized our size and our little distance here, used 8 millimeter, used the reducer that comes with the map tank, and then did a little section of 6 mil here as well too. And so that's all hooked up. Ran the line for the supply to the turbine. That's plumbed into the fuel pump. So right now, the fuel system is all good to go. So we're going to add a bit of fuel into the fuel system just to make sure that the UAT is submerged. And we're also going to run this thing here pretty quick as well. The smoke system, we've just kind of coiled up all the pieces there. And last thing to do on the inside here is going to be mounting our receivers. Now we won't worry about that yet. What we want to do first is do a gear cycle. So I've just set the aircraft up on 2 separate stands, and the gear is free flowing right now. So let's cycle this gear and see what happens. All right, well, I'd love to show you guys the landing gear cycle, but unless I do it manually, it don't work. The Zykoy valve that controls the gear crapped out. So right now, if you plug it in, it's got no power to it. And it's somewhat intermittent. Oh, see, now it works. And if we wait long enough, yeah, it turns off. Pushing the button doesn't do anything. So anyways, this valve needs to be replaced. The gear does work because you can take this and you can manually move it. There we go, so it works. And our pressure's only at 75 PSI, so it's working quite well at a decent pressure as well, so that's good news. All right, so we have switched the valve out to a Jetronic valve. We're going to keep the other Zykoy valves because they're working, and the Jetronic one, of course, is now for the gear. So we've got this switched up. It's a little bit different, so we have to extend this line here going into the Jetronic valve, and then we've got our gear lines there as well too. All right, so Jetronic valve has been installed, and everything is good with the gear. Now, we operated this gear all the way down to 20 PSI, and it worked. It was pretty amazing. So right now we're sitting at 98 PSI. We'll do some cycles here. So we're down to 85 PSI. Works awesome, really impressive. Even at like 25 PSI, the gear was still going up no problem. Now that far gear is hanging up a little bit on the lock. It's not hanging up physically on anything. It's just the lock is resisting a little bit. As the pressure drops down, that gear actually works better. So I'm not concerned with it because once these gear come down, that one comes down. So, but it's working awesome. The whole door lock system is working amazing too. So perfect. All right, so lenses are painted now. Did one light coat of the red on the red lens, and actually 2 coats on the green. The green took a little bit more, probably just because it's a lighter color, but our lenses turned out perfecto. All right, guys, so we are ready to do our test run. There is a whole bunch of bubbles. Actually, the pump's not even sucking up fluid right now, so it may not start, but we'll see. that. All right, so that engine ran amazingly well. I mean, it's a Swiwin 300, of course it ran amazing. All right, guys, so engine ran amazingly well. Those cheater holes, I think, are definitely the ticket when you're running a big engine like that, so I'm glad I did those. Yeah, so engine was good, tons of power in this thing, which is awesome. So the outstanding things that we have to do to this plane to wrap her up is, number one, next thing we're going to work on is those lenses. We're going to get those mounted, and I have a bit of a special way to do those using some different products and ideas, so we'll do those next. We've also got to get the Cortex set up. So right now the Cortex is doing nothing. It's not even in the system. So we've got to get that set up, get the receivers run through the Cortex, all that. That's no problem. We have to get the smoke system all done, but that's we're probably not going to have that in a video because I don't know when those replacement parts are going to show up. So we'll kind of put that aside right now. Of course, you got the center of gravity to deal with. And just cleaning everything up, you know, putting our keepers and everything on stuff. I like to wait till the very end to do that because once you've got all your plugs and stuff oriented and all your setups done, then you know you're good to go with fastening this stuff down, gooping the connectors in here, you know, that type of stuff. So save that for the very end. But those are kind of some of the outstanding things to do. And then we've got a kind of a special programming thing we're going to try and figure out with the pilot heads. But a few things left to do. Okay guys, so the lenses, what we're doing here is the lenses have been colored, the lenses have been fit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get these lenses glued into place with E6000. So we're going to put some E6000 on the black section here, and then we're going to put the lens on, and we're going to tape the lens into place. Now we've got a couple little spots here like this, where we've got a little bit of a gap. Now that's not a problem, and I wasn't worried about it because of the way we're going to finish these lenses off. So just like my Huracan, we're going to tape off like a caulking joint in this area. We'll probably just do the top side and we'll do the underside when we have the wings off. And what you do is you just tape this off, tape it off onto the wing, then you use black shoe goop, and it makes just a beautiful looking ridge on the lenses. I think it's going to be a great way to finish these guys off. It'll basically disappear into the black right here as well too. So I'm going to get that sorted out here, but that's how we're going to be installing the lenses. Really happy with how those turned out. All right, so all of our keepers on the jetty box have been installed, and put a couple zip ties around the wires just to clean things up, and that looks good. We've got one wire sitting on that side of the fuselage, and that wire goes to this side of the fuselage. So that's a future expansion wire when we get this plane set up with the second receiver. That's what that's there for. So the last thing to do in this front bay of the aircraft is go through and shoe goop all of our connections. We don't need to do those ones because of course they're held down with the keepers. So we'll go through and get that done. And while we're in the shoe goop mood, we will shoe goop our lenses. So the lenses have been gooped in place. Now they're solid, so we've taped out around the perimeter. So we'll take black shoe goop. We're going to do one side of the wing at a time and just lay it in this open spot. The nice thing about the shoe goop is it lays down really nice and makes a nice black fillet, if you want to call it that, around the light lens, and it'll hide the transition between the two. All right, guys, so a couple things here, just working on the plane. We're a new day today, which is good. I was pretty tired last night. Lights are done. I can't remember if I showed these already. So this is the fillet of black shoe goop, which really finishes those off nicely. You could use something like trim tape there. Problem is the trim tape is not permanent and it's just gonna eventually come off. So I think that's a way better way to finish that, way better look. The other big thing we're having a problem with, not a problem, but we planned on the batteries being in the nose. It ends up way too nose heavy if we put them in the nose. So that was something that I was not expecting at all. I figured we would be fine with the batteries there and we'd have to add more weight to the nose. So we need to figure out where these batteries are gonna go. Now, we've got the aircraft. We've done the CG measurement two ways. We've done it first with a string in the wing method, which told me right away that it was nose heavy. And then we did all of our measurements on the Zykoy scales and same thing, we're nose heavy, right? So, but we do have to move those batteries around. So I'll show you what we're kind of thinking with that. So ideally the CG works out if our batteries are right there in between the landing gear, which actually is a good spot. It's easy to access. I just have to build a little battery house for it. So that would be kind of the best option. I mean, we could put something further back. I don't really know why we would bother putting it further back. But anyways, it has to kind of be in that area. We could put them back here in the engine bay, in this area. So that's an option as well too. Not ideal though, I don't think. I would rather not have them that close to the engine and stuff. So I think ideally for me, this center section makes way more sense. So I'm gonna probably do some planning here and figuring out there. You know, I was thinking about maybe if you move the compressor back, but the compressor only weighs like 200 grams. So taking this and moving it back there isn't gonna be enough of a difference to offset those batteries being up there. So some of the struggles of building this aircraft. The other thing I'll share with you guys is through my build videos, because we're so far ahead, I had somebody reach out and send me some pictures of how the elevator was supposed to be set up. This is one of those things too. It's like, unless you actually contact Skymaster, they don't send out any papers. The manual's not updated. I haven't seen this posted on any forums anywhere. So it's quite disappointing. And this is why ultimately I like to share my videos and I like this whole process of sharing these build videos with you, because the information needs to get out there. So I'll throw some pictures up as I'm talking here of the way the elevator was supposed to be set up. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this. I mean, it's gonna work. Those carbon plates, when I put mine on the horizontal stab, they didn't line up to the bolt holes, so that wasn't immediately obvious to me. And the rod going through that big ball joint is not going to deal with the servos moving at different rates. There's going to be some flexibility in there, but if your servo, like when we did our servo setup for those stabs, it was like a weird curve, right? It wasn't just a linear curve that we had to make balance. So that ball joint's really not solving the problem of the servos moving differently. So anyways, that's the stab. All right, guys, so the solution here is complete. So we've made a battery house, painted it, done the spatter coat on it, put some pieces of foam in there so our batteries are nice and snug. I'm gonna screw a piece of Velcro that comes across the top, so that's going to be what holds our batteries in place, but that should work out just beautifully. Now what this mark is for is we've done all the rewiring on the plugs, so I'll show you what we've done there. So the plugs are all done, they've all been rewired, and now our leads are all long enough to go back behind the battery box and then over top. So these are going to sit on top of the battery box, and it's going to be awesome just to be able to plug those guys in. And kind of works out exactly how I had it planned originally with the nose, but it's going to be back in that section right there. So I'm just going to finish this up by putting the Velcro on, and then we will get this guy installed. We've got the battery house all mounted in there. The pink ball is covering up the battery plugs, but I'm actually really happy with the way this turned out. And this is actually a better solution because we've got good access to this location. We never have to take the front cockpit out unless we need access to the stuff that's underneath there. But really, really happy with that actually. It's a good change. Took an extra 8 hours of work, but it's done. And there's no interference there. Our cables are all nicely bundled. So that's glued in with high-sol. The pink ball's holding it in place. So that worked out beautifully. Now, a few of you guys have reached out to me by email telling me some of the things that I did wrong. I don't have a problem with that at all, and I thank you and I appreciate you for for reaching out to me, whether it's in the comments or by email. Totally awesome. That's what this is all about. That's why I do this channel, sharing these bits of knowledge which are sometimes hidden. And in this case, we've already talked about the elevator setup. That should be in Skymaster's manual, an addendum to the manual. So anyways, there's two other things. I'll show you what they are. First thing. The rear fins here, the strakes, the ventricles, whatever you want to call them, I initially installed those backwards. And I was approached by two people that said they're backwards, not a big deal, but really they should be the other way around for a scale look. So when I first installed those, I had the long end at the back and the short end at the front, which is backwards. So it was a real pain. I didn't video any of it. I was quite frustrated to get them out, but I sanded as much of the high-sol as I could, used a heat gun, heated it up, pulled them out. It actually, fortunately, it came out fairly easy. And once I got all that high-sol removed, flipped them around and we're good to go. So those are done and fixed. Second thing, thank you, Andre, for sending me pictures of this section right here. As we've talked about in the manual, really not good pictures of this whole setup back here. So what needs to happen is I had initially all of this stuff glued on or screwed onto the elevator, which kind of didn't make any sense to me, but what needs to happen is this needs to float so it sits against the fuselage. These things sit in here. There's a little channel for the this cover plate to rotate in, and then this gets screwed into the fuselage. And this piece rotates. So we've taken this all apart. We're going to clean it up a little bit and then we'll be able to get it reinstalled properly. All right, guys, so we got the drop tank mounted, or the center tank mounted, and fairly straightforward. Had to undo the screws about one turn, and you want to keep it fairly nice and tight. It's just keyholed, so it's quite easy to get on and off, and really nice look on the bottom of the aircraft. And then our battery house is done. So there's a shot for you. Turned out just awesome. Really happy with that, and it's nice and solid. So that is wicked. So our scale pitot tube here, it doesn't quite thread on all the way. So it's threaded, and then the piece bottoms out. So what happens here is we've got about 2 millimeters left before this actually tightens up all the way. So what we need to do is we need to put a nut on that bolt that's protruding, and we need to cut that off just about 2 threads. So just a little bit, about the width of this thing, and we want this to bottom out and tighten down all the way. Now we are going to be adding a functional pitot tube right underneath here is the plan. So that is one of the things we got to get done as well. All right, lots of quick progress here, guys. We've got all of our connectors gooped, so anything that's not mechanically fastened, like on the central box there, all has clear goop on it. So it's hard to see, but it is there. We installed the M-speed sensor, which is right there on the front former. That's where our batteries were going to go. M-speed sensor is plugged in to E4 in the central box 310, and it is functioning. Now, how it is functioning is through our pitot tube right there, hiding underneath the full scale pitot tube. So it's there, works good, and basically invisible, which is awesome. So last things to do on this plane tonight is going to be putting it on the Zycoy balancer for another time here and checking to see how we're sitting with regards to balance now. All right, so we got the big Hawk back on the Zycoy stand here. And let's take a look at our weight. So our final weight dry with fuel in the UAT and just a little bit in the main tank, 67.92 pounds. Nez, do you like that? And our CG there, we are bang on. So we did need to add a little bit of weight in the back here, so I put some lead shot in the tail. Reason I put it back there is because it was nice, it was angled, and worked out well, and then I just poured some epoxy over top of it, and that'll cure and it'll be nice and solid. And then there's also 2 ounces of lead right in the nose gear door, just so we can actually move that weight back a little bit, taking that, that lead out. Because it is so far in front of the CG, it does actually make a difference. So if we take that weight out, we end up being, I think it's 0.1 pounds tail heavy. So, all right guys, and that is the Hawk. Last thing to do here is to put that smoke UAT in when it shows up, but that is the Hawk complete. Well guys, that is a wrap on the Hawk build. Our outstanding items, I've talked about this already, but our smoke UAT we need to put in. CG is all done and good. We are bang on accurate. And the last thing I'm not going to video, but I'm going to do is I picked up some cedar today to make a wooden transport cradle for this aircraft. And of course, that's going to be, we're going to custom build this to the aircraft, just like we did on the 14. And it'll make transportation on this aircraft easier because we've got those rear fins that we need to deal with, and we just can't lay the aircraft down on its belly. So there she is in all of her glory. Turned out absolutely awesome. It was a very quick build, and really looking forward to seeing this thing in the air. Now, because we are in absolutely the middle of winter up here in Canada, if you don't know, that's where I'm located, we won't be maidening this aircraft till springtime. So that is, that's when the maiden's gonna happen. But that, guys, is everything for the Skymaster 1 to 3.5 scale XXL Hawk build. Really, really cool aircraft to put together. This is my first Hawk that I've put together, and definitely enjoyed it. A lot of fun, some cool challenges, some different things to deal with, which is always what makes putting these aircraft together a ton of fun. So of course we've done most of the programming, but as you go through things and as you maiden the aircraft and get some initial flights on it, there's always some additional programming to do. The flaps on this aircraft is one of those big things where you can't have too much flap travel, otherwise it cancels out the elevators or the stab on the aircraft. So a bunch of little things to deal with, but that is everything. So if you guys have any final questions or comments about this build, feel free to list them down below. If you do want for sure to contact me, send me an email, thelightersideofrc@gmail.com. This is one of many builds we have coming up this winter. With a number of builds that we've got going, I probably will end up well ahead of schedule on the videos. So like this video, I think is going to come out probably 2 weeks after the date I'm actually recording it. So that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. I do appreciate it big time. This has been a great journey. We're coming up on the 3-year mark of doing this on YouTube, and it's been pretty cool. So thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.